This is going to be one of those reviews that might just annoy people because it's something that might not be easy to see. I know it's something that has been released in the past, but in this present form, I don't know what the status of it is. I went to see the very limited engagement of the Paul McCartney and Wings documentary One Hand Clapping from 1974. They re-released the album sounding phenomenal. It was always one of those things, like if you were a mega Beatle fan like me or Wings fan, you knew about this thing. Maybe you had a copy of this thing, but it was something that was shot and recorded in 1974, and it was never officially released until like the last month as I record this. And what it was I still don't know the full story behind it, and I wish when I went to see this, it had an exclusive Paul McCartney introduction to the film, which wasn't much, but he sort of sets the context for what you're about to see. And then he comes on at the end and he introduces another thing. But I don't know why it was shot and recorded. What it essentially was a then newly reconfigured version of Wings in the studio at Abbey Road where the Beatles recorded, running through a lot of existing Wings songs and a couple of new songs and some old songs, and just sort of finding themselves as a band, which is fascinating for that. So this has existed for a long time. I had a bootleg videotape of this years ago and it looked terrible. And I had a bootleg CD of it that sounded great, and it was like multiple takes of a lot of the songs. I think it was basically everything they recorded for this. And you get really rocking, really solid versions of some Wings songs that are different from the ones that we know. So there's a version of Jet in here that's different. There's a version of Junior's Farm that's really good, was recorded after, they put out the single of that. The lineup is Paul and Linda McCartney, Denny Laine, pretty new to the band Jimmy McCulloch at that time, who rode with Wings until he dropped out, I believe, before the Back to the Egg album, which turned out to be their last album in '79. And Geoff Britton, who was very briefly with Wings. I don't remember if he ever recorded with them beyond this or if he was just with them this time. And he's a really solid driving rock drummer. And this film we're talking about, One Hand Clapping, is this hour-long, it's not very long, if even an hour, documentary of them in the studio. So it's predominantly them in the studio, working through songs, discussing how they're going to play songs and playing songs live. You get some voiceover by the various band members giving their thoughts on being in the band and music and their own personal histories. Sometimes that is over the music, which you're a little bit like, hey, I want to hear the song as it is. But the album is for that now. The deal with this movie, for as much as I can suss out, I'm actually reading a phenomenal book. What is it called? The McCartney Years? I've got this behind me. A phenomenal biography of McCartney in his solo years. So it starts with right around the time the Beatles break up, and this goes up to somewhere in the mid-'70s, and the second one continues from there. I haven't quite gotten to the point of One Hand Clapping yet, so I don't know, but it looks like it was shot on 1974 video equipment, which was not always a great image quality unless you had a lot of lights on somebody. I mean, video of that era is from TV looks good, but whatever. It has that kind of hazy tube video look to it. It was shot on video, I believe, then probably transferred to 16, and I think maybe transferred back to video back then. So it doesn't look good. It sounds phenomenal because they're using the audio, predominantly any music you hear is the audio from the studio recordings that we have on this new, really, really good multi-album or multi-CD set, or streamable. But when it drops to the audio from the original production, the audio of them talking or starting to rehearse a song, it's a little rougher, but the image quality is bad. Like, it is not, from my memory of the bootleg tape I have, it really doesn't look a lot better than that bootleg tape does. Now, this was released previously. I think it was released as an exclusive as part of one of the super deluxe editions of the Wings albums that McCartney and MPL has put out over time, where you get the original album remastered and then maybe a new mix of the album and unreleased tracks, and then sometimes a DVD of promo films or whatever. There was a way to get this previously. So I'm sure this looks a little bit better than that does, but not by much, because I think what they're starting to work with is pretty junky, but it sounds better than it ever has sounded before. The performances of Wings kick ass in this movie. This is a rockin' hour. This is, if you like Wings, and even if you don't, you might not want to spend as much time with them as far as them talking about things. And Geoff Britton in his karate outfit doing karate moves at one point, which got a nice laugh out of the audience. But the music is solid. So if you want like a kind of a mini Wings concert movie, this is what you got. You got this, and you've got Rock Show, and then you've got some other stuff that was never released at the time. But it's finally cool to be able to see this. It was really cool to be able to see this in a theater. I don't know if One Hand Clapping was really ever intended to be a theatrical film. My guess is that they probably intended it to be a TV special, maybe to promote a tour or something. Again, I wish I knew a little bit more about that than I do. Let me know if you know. But it was really cool to see in the theater. I presume this will probably get another DVD or Blu-ray release. The way it played out in the theater I went to, they billed it as an exclusive Paul McCartney interview, intro, so I'm not sure that it played everywhere. I don't know if it was exclusive to the theater that I went to, or if it was exclusive to maybe every region. One theater gets this intro. But it's just him now in front of a white background, being kooky Paul, talking about the era, showing some Polaroids that were taken probably by Linda or somebody else on the crew during the shooting of this film. And he just says, here's who we were at the time, and here's why we did this. And then you see the film, and then at the end he comes back on, he says, don't get up yet. There's another little extra. Now, when they were making this film, and this is fans, I've had this again as a bootleg forever as audio, and I've seen clips of the video, but never all of it. There's something they call the backyard tape. And when they were shooting and recording One Hand Clapping, McCartney went out to this tiny little backyard that they had at Abbey Road Studios. It was a little grassy area. And he set up a stool and a microphone, and it had an acoustic guitar. And he just ran through like old Buddy Holly songs and Eddie Cochran songs and stuff like that. And again, the audio quality is phenomenal on this. The video quality, again, looks like One Hand Clapping. It looks like 1974 video transferred to film, which was never a good look back then, and then maybe transferred back to 70s era video, and it is what it is. You could say that maybe it has an aesthetic quality now. To me, coming up from the era that I did and what video quality should be and dealing with bootlegs and bad transfers and stuff, I look at it and I'm like, that looks like bad video quality. Now you look at it and it can say, well, that's this aesthetic choice, and I almost feel like if you could have put a framing device, let me get back to what I was talking about linearly. The thing with the backyard tape is presented here as a short film called The Backyard, and it's credited as the same director. It's got this little sort of simple, sort of crudely animated opening of like you're going up to a white image in a window, and the shade pulls up and McCartney is behind it. And it does that a couple times to sort of compress time. And then at the end, it has a copyright. It says copyright 1976. MPL Communication. So it's again a thing that maybe was intended to play theatrically. Maybe it was intended to play as a featurette with Rock Show, which didn't come out until 1980, but it was shot on the 76 Wings Over America, or Wings Over America tour. I don't know, but it was interesting to see it in that context because I'd seen clips used in other things like the Paul McCartney special, the Melvin Bragg South Bank Show episode or whatever that was back in the 80s. But I'd never seen it in full, which I presume this is all about. I don't know if there's more footage that we don't see. I know that with the One Hand Clapping deluxe set that's out now, you can get the backyard session or the backyard tape as a separate LP, EP, CD, what have you. But it's cool to just see it. And it's just him being super relaxed, playing a guitar, being silly, and running through some numbers, and the sound quality is phenomenal. So in the theater, it was really cool to see this. It was cool to be able to experience this in the theater at all. As a Beatle fan, I thought it was something I was always just, or a McCartney fan, something I was always just ever going to have as a bootleg, and it was what it was. So to see it get an official release is really cool. He has so much still in the vault that's never been released. He was somebody like Mark Bolan who just cranked out so much product, demos, unreleased tracks, alternate takes, all that stuff that, it's been heavily bootlegged over the years, but not until more recent years. Bolan is different. Bolan stuff got pushed out in the 80s and 90s a lot. But the McCartney stuff has been dribs and drabs. It'd be a B-side here and there, or an EP here and there, or a single or something like that. So it's nice to see that he's still mining his vault, or MPL is, and that he's allowing stuff like this to come out because it's really high quality in a lot of this material. So the backyard was tacked onto this. I don't know how and when this stuff is ever going to get released officially. I really hope it does because I want it. I want to have it. I want to have a legitimate version. I want to throw away the bootlegs, but unfortunately, they always leave stuff out. Like I'll probably find out that there's something about One Hand Clapping that I've got on part of my bootleg has something this does, and I'll still have to hold on to the bootleg. Or I know that the bootleg I have of the album of One Hand Clapping has multiple takes of some of the songs. Like I don't know if that new set has that or not. I kind of hope it does. I want to pay for something legitimately. I want the best quality. I want to toss the boots. But anyway, as I was saying, it might have been interesting to put a context or a wrapper around this for how One Hand Clapping looks, to have it be like some kind of weird time machine TV that lets us tune in the past, and we have this weird sci-fi window that tunes in 1974 in the studio with Wings at Abbey Road, and that's why it looks a little fuzzy. If you wanted to put a wrapper around it to sort of explain to a modern audience, because the audience I saw it with, I think, was not prepared to sit down and see video that looked that bad on the big screen. And somebody said in front of me, he's like, I think that movie must have been in somebody's garage for 50 years. It was still really great to see. I'm so thankful that it's out there now, that other people can see it too. And I really hope this gets a release. I hope you at home, if you're interested in me yapping for this long about something you might not have seen, I hope you have the ability to see this, because the music is really good. And it's really cool to see Wings in the studio at that time. I don't think there's a lot of footage of Wings in the studio creating. And I don't think there's much other footage at all of Geoff Britton with Wings. So excellent documentary if you love Wings. If you hate Wings, this is all for naught. But one hand clapping from 1974, hopefully coming soon to an ownable format to you.